What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the DK Garage. I'm Jeremy, that's Joe, and we just got to say something right off the bat, man. We were so disappointed that we were not able to do a video last week. We were pumped for Martinsville, but I think it actually ended up being a little bit of a blessing in disguise because the race was a little bit of a stinker, but we still had fun because it's Martinsville. But you know what? This is going to be a little bit different because this is a dirt race coming up, and just being fully transparent with you guys, we aren't dirt guys. We wouldn't have covered this series if it was about dirt. We like it. We're excited for this race. But the content today is going to be a little bit different. So, yeah, if you're here for just DFS, honestly, this is probably not going to be your video. I think you'll find some good little nuggets. We're going to talk about some fun stuff about the sport in general.
This episode is going to pack a punch, though, because at some point later on, we're going to talk about this. We're going to bust these in another video. I think coming back, though, this is how we have to do it because missing last week wasn't any fun.
No, honestly. It really wasn't.
But trying to make up that difference, we're going to add extra content, trying to have some added fun in an already fun weekend. I do like that we're at the Bristol Dirt Race because it's one of those situations where we don't get to see this kind of racing that often, so do something a little bit different too. Adding the cards to the mix this week, I think it adds a little bit extra fun.
Right, and the other reason why we're not able to really do the normal stuff is it's Easter. We're gonna be with our families. NASCAR schedule is a little bit wacky. We got qualifying as heat races. It's honestly just a little too much, and we're not gonna put out bad advice when it comes to your guys' money. So we're going to have a little fun with this one. We got a lot to talk about. But I will say we did get a little bit bailed out from Panini because they just dropped this today.
They delayed it for a few months, but it's here. I'm excited about it.
That's going to be in a video, link up above, because we are going to do our second. This one will be a pack battle, but it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm super stoked. There's so many cool new cards in there. But yeah, let's touch a little bit on Bristol Dirt because, again, I am excited about it. We did see some practice. I don't expect to have the same kind of boring race that Martinsville provided where you could not pass the leader. I think we will get some passing. But you can definitely tell some of the drivers have very mixed emotions about racing these cars on dirt. I think in practice, I did kind of like what I saw. But everything that the announcers and even the drivers are saying is when it comes to the race on Sunday night, after the sun goes down, it's going to completely be different than anything we saw already. So the guys who are fast now, that doesn't mean they're going to be fast later at race time or even in the heats. And if they were slow, they might even be faster. I mean, it's going to be a lot of fun to watch, but I think that's what we should mostly be doing this week is watching, enjoying time with our family. Over the holiday weekend. I mean, it is. That's really what the sport is built on. So that's what we're going to be doing this week.
Right, and I think all these factors have a compounding effect. There's a new car at a dirt event in the NASCAR Cup Series, which we saw last year, but it was a completely different car, and that already was mixed racing. It was not really all that it was, I guess, sold as, and now we're back for round two, and I think it's going to be entertaining. Absolutely. That's why I want to be able to have my eyes able to be glued to it at some point throughout the evening, but it's one of those things I don't feel comfortable putting any money on it, or very little, and in certain fashions, and I don't want to go to extremes this week. We will be doing everything, I believe, for our race guide.
Correct.
So that will be there for you if you do want to get everything from a DraftKings angle and our prize picks. Check out the race guide. It'll be down there and in the link below. So that will be fun to get that put together, but be careful with putting too much on this race because of all the compounding effects that a new car has on the dirt at night when these cars have not been in these situations. I don't think that the environment that we're looking for to really grow our bankroll.
Yeah, we want to have as much advantage going into a race as we can, and when literally everyone in the garage and in the sport is saying we have no idea what's going to happen, I think there's some opportunities to take some stab on maybe some guys who like some singles. You know, if you have that ability in your state to just bet straight up on a driver, that's probably where you're going to want to go. Take some shots while they got good odds. because I really think, I mean, no one expected Logano to win the race last year, and he did. Suarez was up there. He's not a dirt guy. So while I still think dirt guys have a slight advantage, even they are saying this isn't racing like a typical dirt race would. It doesn't just, as the race progresses, the track doesn't transform and change the way it would normally do on a normal dirt course. So even those guys, I mean, it honestly, it could be work against them a little bit because they're so used to it being a certain way, and the guys who have no idea anyway, like, they don't know any better. You know, they can make a move that's not right, but it pays off because these cars just race so different. I mean, independent rear suspension is way different from last year's car. It is, in my opinion, a completely new race. Last year's race data probably doesn't mean very much.
Yeah, I think it's going to be pretty much irrelevant to look at any data in regards to this race. Really, it's anybody's race. I think putting some singles out there, or if you think that you find an advantage with the driver head-to-head, feel free to do that. I think that might...
Or also stack the back. If you can get some just good, talented drivers, you know, if a guy like Harvick, for some reason, due to his heat race, you know, maybe he gets in some trouble and just qualifies like 30th. I mean, he wasn't that bad in like the truck race and even the cup race. I think he did okay. I mean, it's just like, that's probably the safest way to go, is kind of stack the back and maybe take one or two guys up front. But obviously qualifying hasn't happened yet, so we don't know who those guys may be. But I think that might be the safest way to approach this, is kind of super speedway style. Just stack the back, get good drivers where you can.
Yeah, and then check the prize pick lines and our prize picks selections in our race guide, because I think having 2 or 3 drivers in a lineup there, maybe going on some unders with that kind of in mind, could be a way to reach some value. But yeah, I think overall just watching it is going to be the fun part. One thing I'm curious about is getting your viewpoint. Should this be a race that NASCAR continues to bring on the schedule, since there is so much hype around the dirt action? It is building an audience. It is captivating, but is it good racing, and is it something that you want to continue to see?
I'm really torn about this topic, because I think there's already been an indication that this race is already happening next year. I think they kind of already made some announcements, you know, secure your night spring race for next year. If you're at the track, you can get a really good rate. So they're already kind of hinting at another dirt race there. I think having a dirt race, so I think there's 2 problems that a lot of the drivers kind of talked about throughout the week when asked about this. Specifically guys like Kyle Larson, you know, Christopher Bell, whatnot. First thing is, and I don't know why this is the situation. Again, we're not dirt guys. They do not want the windshields in these cars. They did some practice, I guess, with freezing a couple weeks ago, and I guess they just don't feel like it's safe to just completely remove the windshield. Like, they need to have something else there, and they just don't feel like they have that just right. I get it, driver safety, you definitely got to be serious about that. But unless the night race just doesn't have any dirt and mud, these windshields get dirty so fast. You can't see where you're going. So I can understand where these drivers are coming from.
I remember watching videos last year of just like, how in the world are these guys actually driving it right now? And it was so dusty. At points, watching the broadcast, I couldn't make out what was going on. And I was so excited for the event, and I just got let down. But it being at night, I think you're alluding to potentially this might not be as dry and dusty. They can dampen it down. They learned from last year. Will help.
Right. And so that's one of the main driver concerns is like, look, you cannot race a dirt race with a windshield in. So if they can figure that out, they're more on board. It sounds like they would all love to still have one dirt race on the schedule, but they want it at a better track for dirt instead of Bristol. They like Bristol. It's a tough call because the spring Bristol race was kind of not really talked about. It wasn't always the best race when it was just on the concrete. So I think it is kind of, I mean, you've already talked about it. We're hyping it up. A lot of people are hyping it up. I mean, obviously we're going to watch practice, but I think a lot more people are watching practice and these heat races because there's more excitement to it and the unknown. So I think for that aspect, just trying to keep fans engaged and involved, and even bringing in new fans, I think it probably has to stay on the schedule for that reason, but they've got to do a better job from what it sounds like from the driver's feedback. They got to make this car better for dirt, because right now it doesn't seem like it's there.
Yeah, and I get your point to that, where the drivers' feedback, if NASCAR listens and adapts to what their needs are and caters to what the drivers are looking for an event like this, I think it will help improve. Because from a fan's perspective, whenever I'm sitting out looking at this and taking out what NASCAR's putting out as a product, I enjoy it. I think it's something different. It adds to the package that's out there, and breaks up the monotony of how these races have traditionally been single, a lot of oval races and things like that. Sure, it's oval, but it's dirt, right? So it brings back some more of the traditional style of racing that you can go see on the weekends too, with the heat races to get in. So I do like that, and it brings a different dynamic to the racing, and it breaks up the monotony of the schedule. But the schedule is a whole different story. I think this is something I think NASCAR will do a good job at, as they learn from their previous mistakes and adopt different things. I think we'll continue to see these races get better, and I'm hoping we see a better race than we did last year here this week. And I really do want to see it come back.
Now, we'll see how this plays out, but one thing that they had problems with last year is they end up having a lot of rain, and that really messed things up. They're already calling for rain again on Saturday and I believe Sunday. So I really hope that we are able to get both the truck race and the cup race in, because I know the truck race is going to be crazy. They've been racing on a dirt track every year, I think, since 2012. So they've got those trucks a little bit more set up for it, and they just go crazy in the truck series anyway.
It's such a fun series to watch.
It's really a great series. Yeah.
It's so fun, but they do have shorter races than the Cup Series too, and that makes it a little bit more entertaining, because almost every lap matters at that point. Is that something you think NASCAR needs to work on a little bit, making these races shorter? Because this week's race is 125 miles.
Yeah.
That's it. It's a 125-mile event, and it's a shorter race. So is that something that's enticing, I think, for some of these newer fans, these shorter races, so that you can keep them engaged?
Well, it was a big topic this week. You had Kevin Harvick talk about it. Haley Deegan and her boyfriend, they made some tweets about it, caused a lot of conversations on Twitter and YouTube throughout the week. There's part of me that's like, hey, look, this is what the series is. Like, it's not supposed to be, these just short races. Like, it's kind of an endurance race. But that was also set up in a time where the cars were not very reliable. And so it was not just a driver endurance race, but it was a car endurance and a team endurance. These cars are so reliable in the parts, they've very rarely fail. Even this new car, like, we had a few issues like the first couple weeks, and we're not having real mechanical problems right now. It's just usually driver error, or maybe a tire goes down at the wrong time or something like that. But mechanically, everything is holding up. So since that's not really an element anymore, I think you should shorten the races. I think under 3 hours would be a nice mark, between that 2.5 and 3 hours. It's still, especially for Cup. If an event is 400 miles, like on a mile and a half, I think it should be closer to 300. I think that would really amp it up. No more than 350, especially a track that's kind of boring like Texas has been. I don't know how the new cars will be. It might be great now. I don't know. But, man, I think if you ratchet it up, I think you're going to see a lot more intensity on the restarts, and they're just going to be going harder because they have so much less time to do it. But that was a big conversation all week, and there's people on both sides. But I think shortening it would be good, except for Daytona 500. Maybe the Coke 600 can stay. I know Harvick is perfectly fine with lowering that one. But I think, hey, some of these crown jewel races let's shorten it. Also, let's tweak the rules for road courses. Let's do more like what IndyCar or F1 will do, is have local cautions. You know, a place like Coda, man, a caution lap takes like forever. You know, if you're at the track, it gives you plenty of time to be able to go to the bathroom or get some snacks or whatever. But if they can change some of those things, they can definitely amplify the product. But I think we're just at a time in as a society where everything just happens quicker. There's so many more options on TV. You got to capture the audience, and it's just, you're not the NFL. You can't hold someone right now for that 3.5 hours like they typically can.
So with that being said, what do you guys think are some of the things that NASCAR could change to help, I guess, engagement? Because you're right. I think having a 3.5, 4 hour long race is difficult because we've seen baseball suffer. I'm a huge baseball fan, have been my entire life, and that sport has suffered tremendously with the younger generation and keeping them engaged. And now there's all sorts of different ideas being thrown out on how to improve the engagement from the fans' perspective and keep the viewership. And I think NASCAR is trying to learn from previous mistakes, and I'm trying to understand, how can they kind of dial this in? Is it shorter races? Is it doing these events like we saw at the Coliseum and now here at Bristol, doing this on dirt at night? It's going to be fun to see how this all shapes up and what way NASCAR takes this.
I also think occasionally doing some double headers, so even shorter than normal race on Saturday, and then shorter than normal race on Sunday. But it's like almost like a dual race. Maybe it's a way to get extra points, possibly. There's plenty of ways they can set up in the schedule. But if you're already there, why not? Why not run like a shorter race, or shorter races, and try to maximize your time at the track? You shorten the cup race, you could easily fit truck race and a cup race back to back, and it wouldn't be that bad, But if you're only there because you like cup, you're not tied to it as long as you are currently. So I think they have some options. I just don't know how far out the tradition they're going to go, but they've already gone pretty far away from it these last 10 years or so.
Yeah, I'm excited to see how it works out. And the one thing I'm also curious to see is, since this is a short track, we've already seen this car kind of be a letdown a couple times in a row now. Are we in for another letdown?
Okay. Oh, well, hold on.
I really think
do you feel like the racing at Richmond was a letdown?
It wasn't exciting.
It wasn't exciting and this is obviously not meant as shade, but from my point of view, if you don't really know what's going on.
Right.
Casual fans, definitely was not a good race. I don't think there was any, there was no cautions for, incidents. I think one late, actually.
Yep.
And whereas before that, we were getting tons of cautions, and which made, a lot more restarts, just made it a lot of fun there. But, I mean, it was an old school race because it was about pit strategy, tire wear. But yeah, I mean, it was, when everyone was on fresh tires, you didn't see a ton of action. It was once everything got shuffled up. Those aren't my favorite races, but when they happen, it's okay. So for a Richmond race, what we've been getting lately, I thought it was actually pretty good. Martinsville was a snooze fest. I think it scored on Jeff Gluck's tweet that he puts out. Was it a good race? I think it was I think he's been doing it since 2016. It was the third or fourth lowest yes score since he's been doing it. He got 18% yes. Yikes.
Yeah, it was pretty boring, and I think just like at Richmond, it was very difficult for any passing to be done with this new car and in the environment and style of racing. It's just not been figured out yet. And I'm hoping NASCAR does some stuff to change that and allow some teams to make some adjustments maybe to help this. But
and also, to be fair, I don't know if this is completely fair, but a lot of the arguments for why it wasn't a good race was just how cold it is. I don't know if that's a good enough reason. We'll see as they go to some of these short tracks during the summertime and whatnot when things are hotter. And hopefully they'll have a better package set up, better tire combo for when we go back the last race before the championship. That cannot be a preview. If you have a race like that going into the championship race, you're going to kill any momentum you have going in. I mean, they've got to get it straighted out, which I think they will. And
Phoenix wasn't that exciting, to be honest. It was okay.
Yeah, the restarts kind of lull you into thinking it's a good race. But once everyone kind of gets sorted, you don't get a ton of passing.
There's a lot of racing still to get to that point. So
for sure.
I'm sure we'll get a little bit more dialed in, or they'll get a little bit more dialed in with these cars. We'll see better racing, hopefully. And I'm hopeful we see some good short track action this weekend on the dirt.
And we knew this going into the season. We knew that this was a real possibility. It's like, are you going to really nail this car at every track that you go to? No, there's going to be some races. You just have to figure some stuff out. I mean, there was races with the last gen, a lot of them that were not great. So I still think we're off to a great start with this car. I don't want anyone to think that we're bashing this new car, because I think overall it's been pretty good. But yeah, Martinsville was just a complete snooze fest. They got to do better.
Yeah, and now we've got a two-time winner, William Byron. A lot of young guys have won this year with this new car. We talked about how the parity would be there potentially. This car bringing a lot to the table in regards to being on a level playing field. All these teams kind of have the same advantage early on, trying to figure out how to make their cars better. And surprisingly, these younger guys have really been the guys that have dialed it in and been successful early on. Is that something I think that we're going to see later on in the season, or are these older guys going to figure it out?
I think it's going to be a little bit of a mixture throughout the year. It will be interesting to see as we get later into the season if we're not seeing guys like Harvick, Hamlin, Truex, Kyle Busch, if they're still kind of blah, back in top 10. Yeah, they may have some trouble, because maybe at that point I couldn't figure out why they'd be struggling if we're going into the playoffs and they still don't really have wins or aren't being competitive. Obviously, Hamlin got the win at Richmond, but it's awesome to see these young guys going out there and showing out. And I think it's kind of just shows you just how good the vets' cars were last year or in years past, just how much of an advantage they had. Not to say that they weren't skilled, because they obviously earned that ride. But, yeah, the teams were putting everything into those cars. But now you got guys who have kind of been just in junk equipment, like Ross Chastain. Now all of a sudden he's in as good of equipment as Kevin Harvick, and he's going out there and whipping his butt. Like, that's exciting to see. Like, you see why these teams are trying to get some of these younger guys in there, because they do still have the talent to compete with it. So it's really good for the sport. It's also good to help bring in, I think, a younger audience to, like, as a fan base, because I mean, it's like the same age, right? Like Chastain, Reddick, all these guys, like, that's what you kind of want to see if you're getting into the sport, I feel like.
Yeah, and then even Briscoe, man. He's another young guy that got the win at Phoenix, which is a track that usually is dominated by veterans, and he was able to get a win there, and that's where our champion's going to be crowned. So seeing a young guy take that race early in the season was really cool. I'm excited for how this is kind of...
Yeah, I wonder if... Because you hear some of the older... Like I think... Dale Jr. mentioned this, because he does the one race every year in Xfinity, and he was in the Martinsville race.
That was exciting.
That was probably the best race of the weekend for many reasons. But one of the things that he kind of talked about, I think it might have actually been on the Door Bumper Clear podcast this week. It was a great listen. But these guys who are kind of out of the game, or maybe even getting a little bit long in the tooth, they're more secure in life. They have maybe more things going, or more responsibility. There's a lot of things that might keep them from making a slightly riskier move. I mean, they're still going to be aggressive. They're still going to do it. But you've seen it. Hamlin does not race the same way he used to race. He's more strategic about it. I think he's a little bit more methodical. I'd say the same thing. Maybe not quite Kyle Busch. He seems to be just still struggling a little bit. I don't, but I know the talent is still there. But my point is you can see these guys have matured as they've raced. But now with this new car and everyone's trying to figure it out and they don't have the performance advantage, maybe hey, I'm young, I'm still kind of reckless, I'm going to take a chance, I'm going to dive in deeper to this corner, I'm going to beat you the corner because I don't really give a crap. Where some of these other guys, maybe they do give a crap. They're obviously in the game a lot longer. They know how much these cars cost. They know parts are hard to get. They may be trying to just make sure they can complete a whole season. There's a lot of different reasons you could say it. It might just be that they got less to lose. They got to go out and get it. They're not secure in their ride. If Chastain doesn't perform, Trackhouse, they're trying to do big things. Do they give him, if he struggles this entire year, do they just say, we didn't maybe really want you, but we kind of took you because, we bought Chip Ganassi. Maybe we want to bring up a guy from Xfinity or something like that. Maybe like Sam Mayer or someone, you know what I mean? That's kind of my thought on it. What's your thoughts on this?
I think Dale Jr. gives a good perspective because he is one of the only guys that has been able to do this as long as he has, and he's been successful, been a fan favorite. And I think it's one of those situations where really these young guys that are in this week to week now are really at different talent levels. Like these guys have prepared themselves throughout these different stages of NASCAR. I'm really excited to see how this all plays out because I think two of the younger young guns in the future of NASCAR were there at Martinsville on full display and talked about a lot this week. Ty Gibbs and Sam Mayer. I think these two guys are going to be talked about a lot in different aspects as their careers move forward because they're aligned and have been aligned in multiple ways for years. It goes back to ARCA, and now we see them duking it out in Martinsville.
Yeah, I was going to mention, if you didn't know these guys at all, this may have caught you a little bit off guard. I haven't watched a ton of ARCA, but even I knew that these guys had beef coming out of it. And so this season with Ty Gibbs coming full-time and Sam Mayer getting full-time, I knew it wasn't a matter of if, it was when these guys were going to have something happen in the season. They're both in top-tier equipment. They're both really talented young drivers. Obviously, Gibbs has completely shown out since he's been in every Xfinity race. I mean, you can say a lot about, yes, he's probably got the best car almost every week, so that is a big advantage. But you obviously cannot take away the fact that there's other people who've been in that car last year who raced and they didn't win or perform as well. So he obviously has skill, and obviously when your grandpa's, Joe Gibbs, I would think if that's what you want to do, they're going to give you every sort of advantage that they can. You're training for it. You're studying for it. Some of these other guys, they don't have that advantage where they can, maybe study races the same way he does. I don't know what his, race prep is, but he's obviously got a really nice advantage beyond just the fact of his last name.
Yeah, it's fantastic to see him and Mayer competing at that level right there. They were in the cash for the 100,000. So the dash for the cash, and those two guys are going to duke it out a lot, I think, over the next few years. And it's going to be interesting to see if Sam finds his way up to the Cup Series pretty quick, because I think Ty is going to find his way up there
probably next year. I think it's the only reason why it wouldn't is they just want to give him one more year. I just don't know why.
He's got a lot to learn.
For sure.
He's got a lot to learn.
But when a guy like Harvick last year, before even this season happened, said, why are you wasting a year in Xfinity? Get this guy a Cup ride. He's saying that. That's what makes me think, is like, man, why would you want to waste another year in Xfinity? Get him in Cup, because that's his goal anyway. So, I mean, there's a lot of reasons why, obviously I would think that Joe Gibbs wants to sign him, and they've got 4 really good drivers right now. So that situation's a little, it's more than just, yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot that's going to play into it,
right.
I think. But what were your thoughts overall about the scuffle, like viewpoint from Jeremy?
I knew that this was going, I knew this was going to happen at some point this year with Ty Gibbs. I didn't know for sure if it was going to happen because of Sam Mayer. I knew that they were going to have their, issues throughout the year. But he's been so aggressive. The last 3 or 4 races in a row, he's had contact with people. He literally bumped his teammate pretty aggressively out of the way for a win. The race before Martinsville, Richmond, right? Is it Richmond?
Yeah.
Yeah. Didn't completely wreck him. Obviously, he was able to finish second, but Nemechek was not happy about it. Didn't think that it was right when he passed him clean. I kind of saw it the same way, but it is what it is. And then you go back a race or two before that with the issue with him wrecking Ryan Sieg on lap 2 or 3. It was just a move. It's like, hey, man, yeah, you got him loose. You got to give him room because you're going to drive right through him. And Ryan Sieg tried to get back to him. Didn't quite make that work out, and, hey, he still won the race. But it's just like you can see he's got all the talent. He's got the best car, or one of the best cars every week. But sometimes he just doesn't show the patience. And I knew at some point this year that move was going to happen to him, and I didn't think he was going to react the right way, and I personally don't think that he reacted the right way. He reacted exactly how I thought he was going to react.
Yeah, and it's one of those things. I think I talked about it earlier. He's got a lot to learn, and I think this series allows him a platform to do so before he's on a big major market, touting his family's name.
All right, so let's break this up in sections. Race, post-race, pit road. Race, I didn't see anything that anyone did wrong. I didn't think that Brandon Jones getting into him and was the main reason why Ty Gibbs got put back into the clutches of Sam Mayer. I didn't think that was a wrong move. I thought that was what you do at Martinsville. I thought that Sam Mayer got into him harder than he probably intended just because of who was on his inside. I forget who it was. But there were 3 wide at Martinsville. And Ty Gibbs is on the outside. 99 times out of 99 times, that's not going to work out. And it didn't work out. So I didn't think that anything was wrong with how, nobody did anything intentionally. I don't think that Ty Gibbs got shafted or anything like that. I thought everything was it was Martinsville. That's how I saw it. Did you see it any differently?
On the racetrack, I think that was 100% right. And then you said after the race.
So after the race, cool down lap, Gibbs is upset, goes after Mayer, and doesn't bump him, floors it, and destroys the front of his car, and then gives him another shot, almost getting Sam Mayer loose, which would have collected another driver who was right on his inside. I kind of wish that would have happened because that would have really been interesting to see how that played out. Mayer, he handled the car. That was completely wrong, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's why. Well, that right there is what he got fined for.
That's the immaturity. Actually, I don't think it was that. He got fined because he made contact again on pit road.
Was on pit road.
So they don't like it on the cool down lap. But I think they were like, okay, you're upset. And they probably saw, look, you did more damage to your car than anything. They probably gave him a pretty stiff warning for that one, I would think. That was just a bonehead move. Why are you going to destroy your team's car after the race? A lot
of work goes into that.
Yeah. Then you go on pit road, and I guess there was more contact. That's why he got fined. They get out. Obviously, I'm sure most of you, if you're watching this, you have seen this already. But they got out. Both had their helmets on at first. Mayer takes his helmet on. Ty Gibbs does not. No. Or takes his helmet off. Ty Gibbs does not take his helmet off. They're standing there chirping. Gibbs does some pushing, starts walking away. Mayer puts the rest of his stuff up, kind of pushes him back, kind of gets in his face. Next thing you know, Ty Gibbs starts swinging with his helmet on against a guy who doesn't have his helmet on. Again, I think Ty Gibbs is completely in the wrong here. I mean, it's just a bad look. Like, if you're upset and you want to start throwing... As a fan, I loved every minute of it. Let me just be clear. It is this rivalry. I was thinking a lot about this. This rivalry is something that the Cup Series needs. They need some of this. They need a Earnhardt, Gordon. They need some more of this. So if these guys both make Cup, this is, I think, going to be a great long-term rivalry. But how Ty Gibbs handled this one, I didn't like it.
I think it's, like I was saying, he's got a lot to learn, and I think this gives him a platform to do so. And one thing he's going to learn, and learning real quick, is you take your helmet off. And then you won't have as much backlash when you start swinging. But I've seen situations before where this is one of those times where you're just talking.
Yeah.
Ty Gibbs is being talked about. Sam Mayer's being talked about. Everybody was just having a conversation after the fact. It seems like they've been able to kind of come to terms. Maybe they've both learned, put this behind them, because Gibbs hopefully has learned that his little tantrum that he had there will cost his team money, and that does not go over well with the guy that signs his paychecks, I'm sure, and he will have a lesson that's learned at home as well. I'm hopeful. We'll see.
Now,
regardless, it was entertaining, and I think that's what, like you alluded to, this NASCAR series really has done a good job with, is you get a lot of different personalities. And so this is something I'm excited to see grow.
You know, we had different little mini rivalries kind of throughout these years with Cup. You know, obviously Logano, Kyle Busch, Brad Keselowski. But it just seems like over the last few years, they play good enough with each other. They don't really talk about each other. You hear a little bit sometimes in podcasts, I don't really like this guy still. But then you don't see that on the track. There's no visual rivalry. I don't think that there's any chance Ty Gibbs and Sam Mayer are ever to that point where they're just racing by each other, no problem. They're always going to have issues. So one last thing, because this is something some people have been talking about, but a lot of people aren't. What was your thoughts on Coach Gibbs after the race? Because they had some cameras on him, and he looked like he was more pissed off that Ty Gibbs lost than his other driver, Brandon Jones, who won the race, won. He almost looked disappointed. Any thoughts on that?
I don't have any comments, because it's one of those things where who knows what he's thinking. There's a million things going through his head. He could be completely upset with Ty Gibbs that he destroyed a perfectly good race car, and he didn't want to have a conversation with him. That could have been the perspective that was there. Like I was saying, maybe Grandpa taught him a lesson about values and people's hard work, and you just destroyed it because you wanted to have a tantrum. That's my perspective as a father. Hopefully Grandpa taught him. We'll find out if the young man has learned his lesson, because he's a heck of a race driver.
I can tell you Twitter disagrees with you, but that doesn't mean they're right. Anyway, this has been a lot of fun, man, but I got to say I'm ready to wrap this up because I'm ready to dive into one of these boxes.
Absolutely.
I've been waiting for this all day. But seriously, guys, enjoy the weekend. Happy Easter to everyone who does celebrate it. Have some fun. We'll be back. Our goal is to be back next week. We do have a lot of things going on behind the scenes, especially you. So the next few weeks may be a little bit different, but we'll always do the race guide and garage thoughts. That way you have something to go off of. So make sure you subscribe.
Yes.
Check out our Patreon, and let's get to it, man. You got anything else?
If you stuck around this long and you want to have some fun with us this weekend, drop your DK tag below. We'll get you added to the garage crew for our free contest. We have some paid contests every once in a while that add a little bit of fun to it, but we have a lot of action over there every week. It's a lot of fun, so drop that DraftKings tag below, and we'll get you invited to our weekly events.
Awesome, man. Well, let's get to it. Enjoy your weekend. Enjoy your guys' weekend. Happy Easter. Signing off.